up, guys? This is Brendan coming to you once again from Silver Sound Guitar, and today I just want to talk about one of the really basic concepts in music theory that you can actually apply to any instrument you want, but I'm going to demonstrate it on piano today because it's really easy to visualize that way. But once you understand it on the piano, or if you can follow along just with me playing the piano in this video, you can apply it to any instrument that you want. So to start off with, I'm just going to remind you of the C major scale, okay, which is something that you should know. But if you don't, on a piano, it's just the white keys starting on C, so the white key right below these two black keys right here, all right, and going up the white keys until you get to C again. And you can actually do that in multiple octaves if you want. But this is called the C major scale, right? And this C major scale is sort of like, it's almost like the template that we use to build all the other scales, because it has a specific sequence of intervals. So you could transpose this into any other key, and it would be the same sequence of intervals, just starting on a different root note, right? But the C major scale is kind of where it all starts. Okay? So you can just play the scale up and down in single notes like that, like I just did. But a more interesting way to play that scale, and a way to play that scale that gives you a lot more sort of information to work with, is to take the scale and play it in groups of 3 notes. Okay, so we could go like C, E, and G, just like that. And so what I'm really doing is I'm taking the first note of the scale, skipping one, playing the third note of the scale, skipping another one, and then playing the 5th note. So the 1, 3, 5 of the scale, just like this. Okay, and then I'm going to take this pattern and I'm just going to move it up and play the whole scale using that pattern. So I'm just taking that same pattern right here, moving every note up 1 key, every note up 1 key, etc. Right? And I'm just going to play up the whole scale like that. So I'm going to go C, chord built on C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Okay? And then I could go back down as well. Okay? So notice that these are 3-note chords. So these 3-note chords are called triads. Tri means 3, a triad is a 3-note chord, okay? And the other way that we talk about these chords is that we call them diatonic triads. And diatonic simply means that it's coming from the major scale and nothing more. Nothing else. We're not changing anything, we're not adding anything to the scale. We're just taking the chords that come naturally from that scale just by playing more than one note of the scale at a time, right? And in fact, we're building a chord on each degree of the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1. And we're building that chord according to the same pattern each time. Root note, skip one, and we get a 3-note chord that way, okay? So once again, these are called the diatonic triads, and you could transpose these into any key that you want. You could play them in any order that you want, and you can play the notes in each chord in any pattern, in any configuration that you want to play it in. So one example of that is if I took this first triad here from the scale, I know I have a C, an E, and a G. Okay, so I could take those 3. This happens to be a C major triad. Okay, but we're not even getting into that much detail just yet. Okay, but I'm going to take these 3 notes, and I'm just going to take this C and I'm going to move it up an octave. I'm going to put it on the top instead. So now I have the same 3 notes, but they're in a different order. Okay, and I could do the same thing. I could play up the scale just like this, using that same configuration. So the chords, once again, are the same, but they are in a different order. Okay, we took the bottom note of each chord and we put it up an octave, so it's now on the top. That's called an inversion. Okay, so you can play any of these chords, not only in this way, which is called root position, but you can also play them in either of 2 inversions. Okay, so the first inversion would be to take this note down here, move it up to the top, like that. The second inversion would just be to do the same thing now with this new chord that we have, and take this note down at the bottom and move that up an octave, just like that, and we end up with this. So all three of these, this, this, and this, these are all the same chord because they contain the same notes. The notes are just in a different order and in different octaves, right? So root position, first inversion, second inversion. And you can do that with every single one of the chords of the scale. So if I took the chord based on the 2, this is a D minor, I could go root position, first inversion, second inversion, okay? So that's the first step, is playing these chords in different inversions instead of just root position. And then the second thing you can do with them is that you can play them out of order. You don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? I could, for example, play the 1, right? And then the 6. So this is the 6th, the chord built on the 6th degree of the scale, or the chord built on the A. Okay? And then I could go 4, 5, and then back to 1. And I'm just playing root position chords right now, but you can play any inversion you want, just like I demonstrated earlier. So you could go 1, 6, 4, 5. Okay, then maybe I'll jump up to the 3. 3, then maybe I'll go back to the 6. Maybe I'll try the 2 now. 2, 5, and back to 1. Okay? So you'll notice that these progressions sound pretty familiar, right? It's because so many popular songs and jazz tunes and so many songs, hundreds and thousands of songs, are built using just these diatonic triads, right? Just these chords that come directly from the major scale. So play around with that concept a little bit. Start in C major and just do exactly what I just did, and then work on transposing that into other keys and figuring out, okay, what would, like in the key of F major, for example, we have a slightly different scale with a B flat in it. But then we can do the same thing with that scale, and you just have to make sure that every time that B flat comes up, you play a B flat, not a B natural, right? And so you can transpose that into any key you want. You can play those chords in any inversion that you want, and then you can play the chords in any order. And you can get a ton of different variations that way, and you can start writing songs and playing some really cool chord progressions right off the bat. So play around with that. Hope that helps, and I'll see you in the next video.